Hello and welcome to Odds on Champions League match day 3, games on Tuesday. You know that we have Dani Fisichella, we have Alvaro Romeo with us to analyze this new match day. By the way, you nailed, guys, the last international ACCA, so why not try again? Why not give good tips for our audience? This is a European week and we are excited to do this kind of videos. So remember, as always, ask any question to Dani, to Alvaro, Romeo. They know even the last defender of Braga in the roster. And in the meantime, press the like, subscribe, and now let's go on with the show. We have people from Ireland, from LA. I guess it's night in LA, still not even Monday there. So tell us, of course, your comments, your tips for this new match day. Also, if you are interested on getting a welcome offer, we have an exclusive one with 1xbet bonus of 130%. Use our promo code. You have the link in the description. Let's start from the beginning, from Group A. The early kickoff is a really good game. This is a very good game, by the way. Galatasaray, Bayern Munich, because Galatasaray, they are absolutely on fire in the Turkish league. They beat Besiktas in the great derby they have in Istanbul. 12 victories and 1 draw in the last 13 games, including the game in Old Trafford. Icardi is also on fire. And we saw Dani, Bayern Munich struggling against Copenhagen, not in the Bundesliga. They won comfortably against Mainz, but against Copenhagen, they struggle. Perhaps this is an upset for Bayern Munich?
I don't know. I think Bayern Munich is one of those sides that even they look imperfect and still not the finished product, they got so much quality and they got so much pedigree that it's very hard to think they're going to travel to Turkey and lose. I mean, they won each of the last 15 group stage matches, Bayern Munich, unbeaten in 36 matches, 33 wins and 3 draws in the group stage. So it will be a massive upset for them not to win or to lose here. However, they are imperfect, as I mentioned. I think it's a team that somehow is unbalanced, is a little bit short in midfield. Still haven't found out the best partnership at the back. Matthias de Ligt doesn't play as often as he wants to. Only kept 1 clean sheet in 6 games away from home, Bayern Munich. But 8 wins, 2 draws, top scorer of the Bundesliga, 26 goals, and Harry Kane, 10 goals in 11 games so far. So what's not to like about the Bayern Munich? I said they perhaps are a little bit unbalanced and a little bit short. And this is a first time they met against Galatasaray. They never played before. And Galatasaray looked really robust against Manchester United. First ever win in English soil. And they confirmed the main quality. They got goal scorers, which is what is going to set them apart from Copenhagen and from other sides that they might meet in Europe. They do have goal scorers. The more goal scorers you have in Champions League, the more games you win. You don't win by just keeping a clean sheet. They are unbeaten, by the way, this season, winning 2-1, as I mentioned in the derby. Brace from Icardi, whose goal scoring prowess more often than not go unnoticed. There are some players that don't have a great press about them. Maybe they are unlike for some things outside the pitch. I think Icardi is a goal scorer. Had 27 shots in that game against Besiktas. They're gonna go for it. It's gonna be a very, very hot environment, if you like. But let's not forget, Galatasaray also conceded 2 goals at home against Copenhagen. Both to score for me and over 2.5 goals, 239. I doubt Bayern Munich are not gonna get the 3 points.
Well, the both teams to score is kind of an obvious one, Alvaro. The goals market is on the card, and someone is telling us that Galatasaray has great value. Galatasaray to win is 7.0. Even Galatasaray Asian handicap plus 1.5 is 1.8. So it's really good value.
I like that one. I like that one. I haven't thought about that one too much, but yeah, it's a good one. I think that Galatasaray, I think that unconsciously, some of our listeners may think that Galatasaray, they are a free-flow attacking football side, but then they are naive and all that. But I think that is very far from reality, really, because if that had happened, Galatasaray wouldn't be good in the Champions League this year, and they got 4 points already, and they haven't lost a football game since a friendly in July. So basically, they haven't lost any competitive match, and they are scoring goals. Also, they are keeping every now and then clean sheets, like 2, for example, in the last 5 games. And, I want to see how they play against Bayern. I think that it's going to be difficult for them, this game. But Daniele pointed that the center-back partnership in Bayern, the truth is that Thomas Tuchel is still working on that. The absence of Upamecano doesn't help. The form of the Ligt neither. And maybe if Bayern loses the ball in compromising places in defense, Galatasaray can inflict pain, as they did at Old Trafford when Aktürkoğlu, the player who was probably commanding the pressure, got the most of Casemiro many times, and Galatasaray ended up winning at Old Trafford. I know that Bayern is a better side, but I think that this game can be competitive. That's why the Asian handicap plus 1.5 for Galatasaray can be definitely an interesting one. And then what Galatasaray did this summer, they didn't sign players or former stars who were far from their prime, not at all. Most of the good players they have, they are in their prime right now. I really think so, with the exception perhaps of Dries Mertens. The rest of them, they are still in a good age. Wilfred Zaha, Icardi, Davinson Sanchez, Ndombele, and many more. They are young, or they are not that young, but they are 27, 28, 29. So, they are at a very good competitive age. And when it comes to Bayern, look, the record in the Champions League is impeccable. Daniele has explained that very well in the group stage. They have won the last in the last 36 group stage games. They have clinched 33 wins, and they have drawn only 3 times. But there are some players out as well for Bayern. Goretzka, I think that he did his elbow this weekend. Serge Gnabry is out. Guerreiro is out. They got so many injuries that they had less players on the bench than Mainz last weekend. So that tells you a little bit the story. Still, they've got, in my opinion, the best number 9 in the world, and now people will kill me in social media and in the comments in this YouTube channel. But I think that Harry Kane is better than Erling Haaland, or a better footballer, not a better scorer necessarily, but definitely a better footballer. And they've got players who can inflict pain in any position of the pitch. That's why I think that this game is going to be quite feisty, because Bayern doesn't know any other way. I think that Bayern will set the tone, the way they play. They attack a lot. So Bayern to win, and over 2.5 goals in this game. I like it, 183.
Okay, goals in both ends, goals in the game. Of course, Bayern is always very reliable in Europe, but let's see if Galatasaray can upset or keep it tight. It could be the case. In this group, Galatasaray with 4 points, they are fighting probably against Man United with 0 points, or with Copenhagen, we don't know, with 1 point. But they are meeting in Old Trafford, Man United, Copenhagen, and we thought Copenhagen was not going to be competitive with this very tough group, Alvaro, but they probably even deserved something else against Bayern Munich. They took the lead in Istanbul, and they got a draw. At the end, they scored in both games, and Man United, to be honest, they are not convincing at all in the Premier League. They've been so bad against Sheffield United, or even before against Brentford. So I could see Copenhagen putting in trouble Man United.
Yeah, me too. This game is interesting for me personally. This is the kind of game in which in-game betting can be very interesting during the game. Really, because I think that, in my opinion, Copenhagen are going to be very competitive in the first half. This may catch by surprise to Manchester United, and probably Manchester United in the second half, they will have to make amendments and go for it. And I think that the most important things of this game are going to happen in the second half. This is my prediction. As for example, it happened against Sheffield United in the weekend. Manchester United won pretty much in the last 10 minutes of the game with a goal from Diogo Dalot, a beautiful goal. But I think that this game is for in-game betting, really. So, for example, anything that goes around or is similar to Manchester United scoring after the 60th minute is something that I will be backing very, very happily. 0 points for Manchester United in this group, meaning that if Manchester United loses this game, they are going to be pretty much doomed. This is a must win for them. Copenhagen, look, they were good against Galatasaray, but then they couldn't held up with 10 men, and Galatasaray managed to get a draw. And then Copenhagen was again competitive against Bayern. They have been a good team, probably. They have shortcomings, or they're achieved from the points perspective, because I think that Copenhagen could have had 3 if they haven't had a player sent off against Galatasaray. But they are doing well. Manchester United is missing Casemiro. I don't think that right now this is a big problem for Manchester United, personally, because Casemiro is going through a rough patch. And Lisandro Martinez is out. We know that. I guess that Rafael Varane will start this game, because in the weekend he was rested, and Harry Maguire played, and he played well. But, I mentioned the in-game betting, but of course, before the game, we have to bet as well. So, in my opinion, this is a Manchester United to win, 140, because I think that they must win it. And at the end, the Old Trafford factor, or whatever it is, or having best players, is going to play in their favor. 140 for Manchester United to win. But my favorite bet here, aside from the in-game betting, will be Manchester United to win the second half, 165. As I said before, I think that this game is going to be decided in the second half.
Special week for Man United, as someone is saying. The legend Bobby Charlton passed away at the weekend, so there will be a memorial for sure in Old Trafford. They have the Manchester Derby, and Dani is highlighting a tip that I really like. Copenhagen Asian Handicap plus 1.5 is 1.8, similar as what we spoke about Galatasaray.
Well, it would not be very strange to see Manchester United conceding a goal at home again. They only kept 2 clean sheets this season in 7 home competitions, single matches, 2 in 12. They are without Casemiro, suspended. So yes, it is possible for Manchester United to do concede a goal at home, especially if they go out with the centre-back of Johnny Evans and Maguire. Nothing against them, but they look a little bit dated, if you pass me this term. However, what is really affecting Manchester United at the moment, especially in the Premier League, is that they do not convert the chances. Their top scorers, or the alleged scorers, don't score enough goals. Only 1 goal and assist, both from Rashford, for Rashford, Martial, and Højlund in 9 Premier League games. They need to start scoring more goals. They do create chances, get in good positions, but they just don't convert. Is this something going to change soon? Well, that's what Ten Hag hopes. Højlund is a joint top scorer in the Champions League, but it depends, obviously, how well they take in the chances. Against Sheffield United, they went backwards too many times, a lot of pass backs. Bruno Fernandes needs to play a little bit higher at the pitch, but on the other hand, Manchester United were a little bit unlucky, hit the post twice. So you might think at some point they will start 2 or 3 goals. But they are a club in turmoil. There's a lot going on also outside the pitch. Sir Jamie Radcliffe acquiring the 25% of the club. Some supporters are not happy about it. Something is not right at the club from a long time. And here comes Copenhagen. No wins in the last 8 Champions League games. They are tough at home. On their travel, not so much. Last year, they lost 3-0 to Sevilla, to Dortmund, 5-0 to Manchester City. They do concede away from home. This season they conceded 3 against Sparta Prague, 2 against Nordsjælland, 2 against Brøndby, 1 against AGF. They've only lost 1 in their last 18 games in all competition, 1-1 at the weekend. But I think the force of Manchester United, despite all their problems, is too much to take for the Danish champions. Manchester United to score in both half, 205, and by the way, this is a vintage jacket, so that's why there are only 3 stars, because in 1986 Brazil had only won 3. Know your history first. So of course I'm joking, of course, that is vintage.
Man United to score in both halves. Another interesting tip, someone was saying both teams to score. This pays 2. And I saw, for instance, first half double chance for Copenhagen is also around 2. If you think, as Alvaro, that Man United, they are experts in scoring in the last minutes of the game and scoring in the second half. Very interesting games in this Group A. Also very interesting one. Group B, very open. Every team has the chance to qualify, and especially because Lens, they were able to beat Arsenal at home. Arsenal now traveling to the Sánchez Pizjuán to Seville. Arsenal, let's see if they suffer in Europe, playing away after that defeat in the north of Italy, in the north of France. The truth is that Seville is not an easy ground. Alvaro, we saw a new manager, Diego Alonso, making his debut in La Liga, and Sevilla was very competitive, controversial and referees issues aside, with Sergio Ramos as a big star. What are the main things that you saw in this new Diego Alonso's team? And do you think we should back Sevilla somehow? Because I think Arsenal is too favorite to win in a very tough stadium like Sánchez Pizjuán.
Yeah, but I'm going to back them indirectly. For example, with the both teams to score 177, that means that I trust Sevilla at least to score a goal. By the way, there is a value in there that if Sevilla starts strongly, it's pretty decent. Sevilla to score just one goal or more in the first half, so over 0.5 goals in the first half, that pays 2.4. It's very inviting if Sevilla comes out onto the pitch and storms off and tries to generate chances and all that. But I am afraid that normally it's Arsenal the team that does that, because I have seen them doing it so many times. Arsenal coming onto the pitch and dominating you from the very beginning, that I don't discard any scenario right now. But the goals market, I like it. Sevilla to score over 0.5 goals in the game, 1.4. That's too low, obviously. Both teams to score 177, that's fine. Sevilla to score over 0.5 goals in the first half, 2.4. That's risky. So, those are my recommendations. But when it comes to the new Sevilla from Diego Alonso, difficult to tell because Diego Alonso hasn't had a lot of time to train with the players. But I will say that I expected him to remove that double pivot of Rakitic and Fernando in midfield, because they are both way over 30, and I don't think that you can compete in football with Rakitic and Fernando as holding midfielders. So he played with Shaw in midfield, and I think that improves Sevilla a lot. And then Soumaré. So Soumaré, Rakitic and Shaw was the midfield, and they did pretty decently. They competed against Real Madrid. And then the real shame for Sevilla is that Gudel picked a small injury, and I don't know if he's going to be ready for this game or not. But one thing that Sevilla hasn't been able to do since Koundé and Diego Carlos left is consolidating a centre-back duo. And it looked like Sergio Ramos and Gudelic were predestined to play with each other. And Gudelic picked an injury. So let's see who Sergio Ramos will play with this time. But, generally speaking, Sevilla is not bad. The only thing is that they are not winning. They are just drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. And they have done it in the Champions League and in La Liga too. And they need to start winning again. When it comes to Arsenal, look, I think they are going to dominate the phases of this game. They are the third in possession in the Champions League. By the way, the La Masia influence in some clubs is massive, because 4 of the 5 teams with more possessions in the Champions League are coached by a former Barcelona player, Luis Enrique, Arteta, Pep Guardiola, and Xavi. And, Arsenal is dominating too. They are in a good moment, that's for sure. Maybe not as good as last year, but still they managed to come back in Stamford Bridge to draw 2-2. So I expect goals here. Both teams to score 177.
Tyson is telling us that the value is in the draw, and perhaps it's not like our friend Tom Rennie says, Dani, that this game screams draw, but I think could be very likely to see the draw in the Sánchez Pizjuán.
Arsenal are unbeaten in the Premier League, always scored in their last 19 Champions League group games, and they come on the back of 2 deceptive results. They won against Manchester City, where really they deserved to draw, but ended a series of 12 straight losses to City, so a very important psychological boost. And then they draw against Chelsea, where probably deserve to lose. They were sloppy until the second half, showed a never say die attitude at the end, and avoided defeat for the first time since March 2021, when they were trailing by 2 goals or more in the Premier League. So they got a stronger belief in them. They go until the end. But if you look at the position in the table and the points they have, I think it is deceptive. On the other hand, against Lens, they lost a game almost inexplicably. They were the better side, and they were punished by 2 pieces of brilliance from Lens and a few sloppy mistakes at the back. They got the second best defense in the Premier League, Arsenal, and the good news is that Saka has returned to play in the second half against Chelsea. Now, when it comes to Sevilla, obviously is a team that has sacked 4 managers in the last 12 years. And I go back to the point of Diego Alonso. I remember
12 months.
Sorry,
12
12 months. 12 months.
Yeah.
12 months. See, 4 managers in 12 months, of course. And I go back to the point of Diego Alonso, former Uruguay manager at the World Cup. Only 12 games in charge, by the way. And it wasn't a very high-scoring side, this Uruguay. Only scored more than 2 goals in one occasion in official games against Venezuela. I remember a very cautious Uruguay side of going forward, robust. And I think even Sevilla have only kept 1 clean sheet in the last 7 games. This is probably going to be an under game. And I'm surprised the line is so high, 275, under 2.75 goals, 181. If it's an Arsenal win, is an Arsenal win by low scoring margin. It could be a both to score draw a 1-1, but I don't expect a lot of goals here. 181.
Tough one. This one, Diego Alonso improved
Under
the team from the
2.75.
bench.
By the way, it's under 0.275, not under 2.5. So if there are 3 goals, you lose half a stake. Under 2.7, under 2.5 will be way too low.
I was saying that Diego Alonso made good changes actually in the game against Real Madrid, better than Carlo Ancelotti. The team improved with the changes. Alvaro?
Yeah, and very quickly, let's don't underestimate something that the Spanish football fans know, but maybe our international fan base doesn't. The atmosphere at Sánchez Pizjuán is pretty special in European nights, and I think that Manchester United and Juventus back in the spring, they ended up suffering there because Sevilla, I don't know how, but they managed to dominate normally teams that are better than them. So I don't think that this is going to happen the whole game against Arsenal, but Sevilla will have their moments too. That's why I'm going to go for both teams to score. Sorry.
Yeah, or for instance, Sevilla double chance, someone was highlighting it, is around 2. So I think this could be a disappointment for Arsenal for sure. It's a very tough game, and I think the odds are too low to back Arsenal against Sevilla. And in this group, we have also a really good game, Lens PSV in the north of France, in the Bolaire. Dani was saying that Lens scored 2 beauties. Indeed, they did against Arsenal to get the victory in Ligue 1. It's another thing, only 9 points. They couldn't beat Le Havre even at the weekend. They are still in the bottom part of the standings, Dani, with PSV cruising in the Eredivisie. They've won every single game so far, and this is an oddity in Europe. This is a tough one to call, in my opinion.
I'm not entirely sold on the idea that Lens is back. Last season they were the wonder kids of Europe. Now they are unbeaten in 6, but they do look inconsistent. 0-0 against Le Havre on Friday. Watch it. They were without the main man Wahi, who was suspended. They could have lost the game as well. In the end, Sotoka's goal was ruled out by VAR. A fair draw against Le Havre, who's at bottom of the table team. Last year, Lens had the best defense in League One. They retained all their top defenders, Gradit, Medina, Danso. They have lost Fofana and Openda, so they replaced him with White, but somehow they are not hitting the same highs as last season. Of course, playing every 3 days is much more tiring, but the good signs are that they can score beautiful goals. They are rapid, quick, players like Gavilui as well, setting up well, Aguilar, but have they got enough to win back-to-back Champions League games? PSV, on the other hand, they are winless in the last 14 Champions League games, but they are a high scoring side. Yeah, Alvaro.
No, but the thing is that the run stretches to the 16-17 season and the 18-19 season. I mean, the players were totally different at the same time,
That's true. But in recent season, they haven't won many either. So it's they haven't played there because they weren't good enough to play there either. So it's it's a double header if you like. But they are scoring goals. They scored 19 goals in the last 6 games. They won 5 of them and drawing the other against Sevilla. They are top of the league in Holland, as I do remind. The first 3-1 against Fortuna Sittard. They score over 3 goals per game in the Netherlands and conceded only 3. But if you remember how reckless they were in that 4-0 defeat against Arsenal, and they conceded 2 against Seville, obviously you cannot take the league form into account. They conceded away to Sturm Graz and Rangers in the qualifications of the Champions League. So Champions League football is a little bit different for them. Can they win it here? I'm not sure, but I cannot see Lens winning again and going top of the group. X2 and over 1.5 goals. Any Peter Bosch team, any Peter Bosch side, I think is always an over, often is an over 1.5 goals. X2, so PSV are not going to lose it, 2-1.
Well, most of our audience are going also for an X2. They think there is value on PSV, apart from Joseph Bangura saying that he lives next to Eindhoven and he sees his team losing. It would be a big surprise. I agree with Dani. If we see Lens with 7 points after 3 games, a very poor Lens in the French league.
Or 10 points after 4, because they are playing back-to-back games against PSV. That would be incredible, really. But yeah, look, this game is going to be totally honest. This game for me is a little bit of a pass, really. I don't think that. I think that an attempt to make some value here or to get some value out of this game is a risky attempt. So it's not for me, but there is a note that I could like and goes in line a little bit with what our fan base is saying in the comments section. A draw at 30 minutes. I would like it 173. Why not? Yeah, this can be the kind of game that starts slowly. Why not think that, obviously? But, with Lens, they have suffered 1 defeat at home this season. Then you look at PSV and Eindhoven, they are doing well, but then they went to the Emirates and they lost 4-0. But the Emirates is a totally different story to playing against Lens. Noah Lang is suspended, by the way. He's an important player for PSV Eindhoven. So, this side doesn't have a very, very deep squad, and missing one of the key players, it's a real shame for them. But anyway, this is pretty much a pass for me.
Well, good game. This group, again, is very interesting. Group B. Let's move to Group C. Here, I guess, is very clear that Real Madrid will be in the last 16, and then we have Napoli and Braga fighting for the second spot. Real Madrid traveling to Portugal. We saw a good Real Madrid in the first half against Sevilla. The team, the club, the manager, all of them, they are furious with the referees' mistakes that we saw at the Sánchez-Pizjuán. We have El Clásico on Saturday, but also Carlo Ancelotti made some mistakes. I think with the changes, we couldn't see Joselu enough. We saw Modric. He played for Croatia all the minutes and he looked tired. Alvaro, but Real Madrid, they show us again in Napoli that they are very reliable in this competition. Braga is kind of a newcomer in this Champions League. So Real Madrid to win and a high-scoring game, I think, is on the table.
Yeah, it's on the table. Yeah, I like Real Madrid to win the second half. It pays 180. By the way, I am Alvaro, because some listeners, they are calling Dani Alvaro and Alvaro Dani. I am Alvaro, and the other one is Dani.
We are 2 different people. It's not to be like.
Yeah, let's clarify that from the beginning. Where was I? Yeah, Braga, Real Madrid. Let me tell you something, Edu. I think that the media outrage for what happened at Sánchez-Pizjuán is totally over-exaggerated, really.
I was very angry. I have to say that I was watching the game. Yeah. I was one of the very angry guys.
No, me too. I'm angry when my football club, doesn't get the help from the referee, or no, let me rephrase that. When the referee affects the refereeing performance, affects the result of my team. But that was nothing that we haven't seen before. I mean, every club at some point gets a little bit seriously affected by the referees, and it happened to Real Madrid this time. But I think that the media coverage of this has been a little bit disproportionate. Anyway, it's Real Madrid, and we know that most of the Spanish fans, or maybe the 50% of the Spanish fans, like Real Madrid. So there is, I guess, that a justification for that. But anyway, I think that Real Madrid, they are rather reliable in the Champions League. They are taking it seriously. They suffered against Union Berlin in that game where Joselu came in and he made a massive difference, even though he didn't score. Then Real Madrid in the second game against Napoli, I think that they were better the whole game, apart from maybe 15 minutes at the beginning of the second half, with Jude Bellingham playing fantastically. And with Carlo Ancelotti, in the second spell of Carlo Ancelotti, Real Madrid numbers in the Champions League have been so good, and in the group stage especially, they have won 10 of their last 12 Champions League group stage matches. One of their defeats, by the way, and the only one with Ancelotti in this second stint of Ancelotti as Real Madrid manager, was against Sheriff Tiraspol, by the way. You may remember this, but then they ended up, you do, Edu, but you end up winning the Champions League. This is the good thing. And I think that Real Madrid, they are close to finding the best possible lineup for them. I don't know if Rodrigo is going to continue starting games because he's not playing well at all. But this is not a massive problem for Real Madrid, because now with Rudiger, Alaba, Carvajal playing well, then in midfield, Tchouaméni, with Kroos, Luka Modric, Camavinga, I think that the most of the important players are back. And then Bellingham and Vinicius up front, they are capable of creating their own chances and, doing the whole thing. So it's a good moment for Real Madrid. And I think that on top of that, Ricardo Horta is very likely to miss this game for Braga, which is a massive blow. And by the way, Braga, who beat Union Berlin with a super goal from Bruma, but still, I think Real Madrid has the know-how to negotiate these games away from home in Europe. So Real Madrid to win 153, that's fine. I think that in my ACCA I have that, but I will confirm it later. But Real Madrid to win the second half, I love this one here, 1.8.
And Napoli, Dani, they had so many chances also when they played in Braga. I think this should be a high-scoring game. Not for sure, because there are not many things for sure.
Depends how high.
Only Porto to win away if you check some other videos, but I think there will be goals. Yeah.
Depends how many, because if Real Madrid scores a couple in the first half, they could take the foot off the gas a little bit and think on the Clásico as well, which is going to play on their mind. Braga can score beautiful goals, like the one that Bruma scored against Union, but can they score enough goals to beat Real Madrid? That's the question. They have scored, Braga, in all their 15 competitive matches this season, won 11, drew 1, lost 3, and they scored 13 in the last 4 matches. They came back against Rio Ave to win in the league, and then they won in the Portugal Cup. Maybe a little bit of quirk, I guess. They played on Friday in the Portugal Cup, so they're going to be slightly more rested, the Portuguese sides, having played sides from lower divisions. But, the class between Real Madrid and Braga is so evident that there's only one favorite. Real Madrid won 10 of the last 12 group stage matches in the Champions League, only one defeat, so it's very unlikely they go to Portugal and get beaten, although last season they almost lost it in Donetsk. They got 10 wins out of 12 in all competition this season. We mentioned, of course, the stars of Real Madrid. Jude Bellingham, another fantastic performance midweek last week against Italy, a total footballer. Under 3.25 goals for me, 187. So because there is a 0.25 bits, if there is only 3 goals in the game, you win half a stake.
Both teams to score here is 1.6, and we've seen a massive difference, Alvaro, between Courtois and Kepa. Kepa, in my opinion, he's not been reliable with Real Madrid. Also, he could have done more in the goal conceded with Sevilla. In Napoli, was exactly the same.
Yeah. No, and especially in the his aerial game is not particularly great. I think that he suffers with the crosses, and generally speaking, Kepa's career hasn't had the development I thought he was going to have, because when he became the first choice goalkeeper for Athletic Club Bilbao, he looked very good. And even Real Madrid at the time in 2018, looked like they made an attempt to sign him. But that never happened at the time. He went to Chelsea and he hasn't gotten any better since he went there. In fact, he lost a little bit of confidence. I would like to remark again the Ricardo Horta thing for Braga, because this is very important. Last season, if he is out, because Ricardo Horta, I don't know if he's going to be a doubt or not, but please check that out. Last season, Ricardo Horta scored pretty much the 33% of the goals of Braga. And this season, Ricardo Horta has scored already 5. It's true that Manza and Jaló, for example, they have scored 1 more goal than him, but still, it's a very, very big miss for Braga if Ricardo Horta is not in the pitch. So keep an eye on that.
Well, for Tyson, Real Madrid to win. For Garau, Real Madrid an Asian handicap -1. Vinicius to score at any time. I mentioned the mistake that Kepa made against Napoli. Napoli now playing in Berlin with 3 points. They have to win against a poor team or unlucky team, we have to say, in the Champions League, Union Berlin. But not only in the Champions League, 8 consecutive defeats, probably is one of the worst runs in all European football. In the Champions League, again, they conceded 2 late goals against Real Madrid and Braga. But Napoli, Dani, at times they look that they can take the level of last season. Finally, Kvaratskhelia doing big things also at the weekend. At times, they look very leaky, for instance, against Fiorentina.
Is a team that has suffered a lot in the transition from Garcia to Spalletti. Is undoubtedly the players are pretty much the same, apart from Kim at the centre back, but the style of play hasn't changed tactically. It's still a 4-3-3. He does change the way they play. They keep the possession less and they try to play quicker. But now they try to reestablish slowly, going back to the previous style. And I think the idea at the weekend to play Raspadori instead of Osimhen, who's injured, and not playing with Simeone, shows that Garcia is slowly backtracking and going back to the Spalletti style of play. So Raspadori allows you to play more with the ball, associates more, keep the ball better, and it was a good choice. They had more possession up front. They rushed less shots. Kvaratskhelia benefited from having a little bit more space and somebody to exchange the passes with and score 2 goals. They need to continue because Garcia is under pressure. De Laurentiis, during the international break, has made his feelings known very well. He's been at the training camp quite a lot. He's almost micromanaging Garcia. It's not a secret that if Antonio Conte had said, yes, probably today we will have a different manager on the Napoli bench, but this is a manager chosen by the president. The president trusts him. Everything is run pretty much by De Laurentiis now that the sporting director Giuntoli is no longer there. He got most of the calls right. Let's see how it goes. They are unbeaten away from home this season in Napoli, but only 2 clean sheets in 6 games. They still got mistakes on them. Good win against Verona, but the last few games, the best games they played were against Lecce, against Verona, against Udinese, so struggling sides. You cannot really take that into account going into such a big Champions League night. However, Union are in disarray. They hold the leads in 2 out of the last 3 games, but still lost them. They lost against Borussia before the international break, conceding very stupid goals. Last year, best defense in the Bundesliga, 38 goals conceded alongside with Bayern. This season, already conceded 17. Let's see if Bonucci starts this one. He was on the bench at the weekend. For me, it's a goals game. Napoli doesn't normally win games 1-0. If you think Napoli wins, this is a massive, massive chance to bet on them, 205. You're never going to find better odds. Probably only on Porto to win against Antwerp in the previous video. I'm going to go for over 2.5 goals, 185.
It's brilliant. I must agree with Dani. Alvaro going for Napoli to win here.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm going to back Napoli as well. I think that Napoli to win 2-2 makes sense, but I'm always more than happy to use the handbrake a little bit and back them with a nice handicap minus 0.25. So in that case, if Napoli draws, you suffer half a lose, but that's totally acceptable. And if they win, you end up winning 170, and I like it. Good that Kvaratskhelia is scoring again, a brace last weekend. Important players for Napoli are missing. One of the biggest misses, by the way, is Joan Jesus, the Brazilian defender. Tambo Anguissa is not going to be playing neither, and Osimhen, of course, not. But the defense of Napoli have looked a little bit, inexperienced, especially against Real Madrid in the previous game. And when it comes to Union Berlin, look, they are going through a rough patch. I mean, they lost to Stuttgart in the weekend 3-0 at home. By the way, Guirassy scored, but who can stop Guirassy these days anyway? And a few players were rested, like Bonucci, Kral, Fofana, Becker. They were all on the bench. Geraldo Becker has scored 2 goals in the Champions League. He's delivering definitely for Union Berlin in the Champions League. But, it looks like Napoli are better. I think that Union Berlin, on top of that, they are not having a good season. If this game has been played maybe at a different moment in time, I could have backed Union Berlin somehow with a handicap or whatever, but I don't really trust them this time. So, I'm going to back Napoli with an ace and handicap minus 0.25.
Well, Napoli all the way, for sure. In this game, Group D, this is an interesting one as well. Quite open. First game is Inter-Salzburg, quite open, but we expect, Dani, I guess, Inter to top this group at the end. They were very convincing in the last home game in the Champions League against Benfica. They were lucky enough to get a point from Real Sociedad in San Sebastian, and also they look very good at the weekend with this new couple, Thuram Martinez, Lautaro still scoring with Inter. So the only problem here is the odds, Dani, that the bookies know as well that we should go for Inter all the way here.
And the only problem for Inter sometimes is psychological. They know they are strong. Sometimes they know it even too well and take the foot off the gas, and they think they're going to win some games against lesser oppositions by defaults. It happened against Sassuolo. It happened against Bologna in the last 2 home games, excluding the Champions League game. They took the lead and then they suffered comebacks. But against Benfica, Inter created so much and they were so good that even Lautaro, who missed 3 clean chances, was named player of the match because Inter were so dominant, especially in the second half, and they showed the great experience, the great pedigree that reaching a Champions League final gives you. You got a second gear in yourself and you can turn games around in the second half. 25 goals for Lautaro in 2023 after he was excluded from Argentina starting 11 in the World Cup. He's totally fired up and close to sign a new contract with Inter. That obviously helps. Good reaction in the second half against Torino. It was a sticky game. Then Inzaghi made a couple of changes, introduced Denzel Dumfries, question mark, is he the best wing back at the moment in European football? Or maybe let's narrow it down, best right wing back if you want to. The question is for you. 8 assists for club and country this season, 2 goals so far, decisive against Torino. And to be fair, when he arrived at Inter, I wasn't one of the biggest fans, but I'm starting to warm towards the Dutch player. Salzburg failed to score for the third time in the last 14 Champions League group stages. When they lost, they won 10 of their 15 matches in all competition, lost surprisingly 1-0 at home to Lask on Saturday, and only scored 3 goals in the last 4 games. Very young side, this Salzburg, with a lot of energetic young players, but experience is important in those nights. Inter to win the first half, 180.
Well, Inter to win the first half, someone is saying Inter to win 2-0, very solid, as Dani was saying, Alvaro. This Inter, they show it against Benfica and Salzburg. Well, they beat Benfica, but they were outplayed completely by Real Sociedad.
They were outplayed, but, they are favorites for this game. And I understand perfectly why the bookies have made these odds. I mean, it's difficult to find something that actually gives you a lot of money, but maybe Inter to win the second half could be something that I could be backing here. 164 to the question that Daniele made. Maybe yes. Maybe Dumfries is the best. Is the best right wing back in the world right now. If he was fit, I would say that Reece James is slightly better, but he hasn't been fit for a long time. So yeah, maybe yes. Inter has a really good team, that's for sure. I think that they have a complete squad. Maybe Arnautovic is out. I think that Arnautovic is out until November.
Yeah, November.
But But other than that, they are fine. Lautaro has scored 11 in the Serie A. They regained the first spot in the weekend, so kudos to them. They are in a good moment. And Salzburg, look, against Real Sociedad, they were totally outplayed. They lost at home in the weekend. And, they got some identity signs that they never vanish. Like, for example, they are the leaders in recoveries in the Champions League. They pressure up front really well. The counter pressure is excellent. But I think that Inter is the favorite here. If you like Salzburg a little bit and you feel some sympathy for them and you think that they can score, because Salzburg has failed to score only 3 times in the last 14 Champions League group stage games. And this stat goes back to 2021, I think. So it's quite current, quite present, quite valid. I think that Salzburg to score over 0.5 goals, 173, is interesting. But still, my favorite one here is Inter to win the second half, 164.
Well, if I remember well, I think Salzburg traveled to San Siro last season to play Milan, and they were smashed by the Rossoneri. In the group stage, Ayub is feeling some sympathy for Salzburg, Alvaro, and he's going for Salzburg to score. And Tijan is asking you if you like this cancellation of the away rule in the Champions League.
100%. Good riddance. It was such an anachronistic rule. Well, and it ruined so many ties. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The thing is that I never understood why, if after 180 minutes there was a draw in the aggregate, one team should be out.
Yes.
In my opinion, the Champions League hasn't gotten any worse. There were like many people who were like, this is going to be ridiculous. This is going to be, the Champions League is going to get way more defensive. Didn't really. I mean, Manchester City had a defensive approach away from home. That's true, against Leipzig, against Real Madrid. But other than that, the Champions League last season was very entertaining as well.
I think there are more goals. I think there are more goals scored. If you look at the last 3 editions of the Champions League, I think there are more goals scored in the later stages. Yeah, it was an old rule. It was an old rule.
Last game of this video is Benfica Real Sociedad, a very good one and very, very important one, because Benfica 0 points, one of the biggest disappointments, I would say, in this Champions League, because last season they were good, because they are kind of dominated the Portuguese football, although they are second in the league, but they won the last 7 games. But in Europe is another thing. They even lost to Salzburg at home, and danger for Benfica, Alvaro, because this Real Sociedad, they are looking very good week and after week. They lost to Atletico de Madrid, but they deserve more. Even in Europe, they are playing on the front foot. The odds to back Real Sociedad here somehow are very good.
They are good, yeah, and I'm going to back them with an Asian handicap plus 0.25 in the first half. That for Real Sociedad. That means that if they draw the first half, you get half a win, and if they win the first half, you win 170. And I like it, really. Even though Benfica, last season in the Champions League, they were fantastic. We have a Benfica fan here, a Benfiquista, just saying hello, Sumo85. And I would like to ask Sumo how he feels about Di Maria being out. Because Di Maria has been fantastic for Benfica, but I think he's going to be out until November, and this lessens the chances of Benfica. That said, I am totally aware that Benfica could win this game as well. But I know that Real Sociedad, tactically speaking, they are very wise, and they will make sure that in the first half, they don't lose the plot. So that's why I'm just going for the first half market. I think Real Sociedad will have a game plan, and if nothing bad happens to them, like scoring early or whatever, I think they are capable of keeping the draw in the first half. Against Salzburg, in fact, they played a fantastic first half away from home, and probably what Real Sociedad did in game week 2 was one of the best performances of a basket side I have ever seen in the Champions League. They were fantastic, really. The bad thing for Real Sociedad is that they've got a couple of important-ish player missing. One of them, Tierney, but it's not a tragedy at the end of the day. And the other one, Andrés Silva, a player who was ready to come back after the international break, but he picked an injury training. But Real Sociedad has quite a complete squad. Oyarzabal can feature as a number 9. Carlos Fernandez is a decent number 9 as well. And then Umar Sadiq can do it. So, I think that the game is going to be pretty interesting, quite leveled. So I'm going to stay there. Asian handicap plus 0.25 for Real Sociedad in the first half.
Value on Real Sociedad. We see some comments, Dani, going for a double chance. For instance, for Alguacil's men, this is 178.
They have an habit of scoring early, Real Sociedad. They look very fit. They score within the first 10 minutes in 6 of their 11 matches this season against Inter. They pressed them really high from the start and got the goal. And mention to Kubo, who's starting to be really useful, not just pretty to watch. 5 goals in the last 8 games, came from the bench at the weekend. Assist for Bryce Mendes against Mallorca, but Real Sociedad suffered against Mallorca. Ramiro had to make a couple of good saves, and Alguacil said that was the worst game they played domestically, but they scored more compared to last season. Benfica disappointed me when they played against Inter at San Siro. They played without a number 9. They didn't really threaten Sommer, but normally they score. They failed to score only in 3 of the last 21 Champions League games, twice against Inter and once against Salzburg. Played on Friday, won 4-1 in the cup against Lusitania. They made a few rotations, and in the La Liga they are doing okay, although they only beat Estoril at the time thanks to Antonio Silva. For me, is above to score 185.
Okay, really good game. This one, let's see what happens in Duluth. Also very important for the standings and to know which team will go through in this group together with Inter. We imagine that the former finalists, they will get to the last 16 round. Well, this is it. Dani, tell me your safe bet.
Manchester United to win 140.
I don't see this very safe, to be honest, seeing their level in all competitions.
They'll win. No problem.
Alvaro?
I tend to agree with Dani because Manchester United to win is in my ACCA, but my safe bet is going to be Real Madrid to win 153.
Of course.
And ACCA, Alvaro?
Well, it's going to be Real Madrid to win, Manchester United to win, Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Napoli, altogether 364. But if you put Napoli, if you choose them winning, because some betting houses, sometimes they don't like quarter handicaps, and Napoli wins, the amount will go up to 432.
Dani?
Some people already commenting, that's not safe, but United winning. We will see. Manchester United, Copenhagen, over 2.5 goals. Arsenal, Asian handicap 0. Napoli, Asian handicap 0. Inter, Red Bull Salzburg, over 2 goals. 409, the total odds.
I don't trust this Man United as well, so I won't put it in an ACCA or in a safe bet. Well, thank you, Dani. Thanks, Alvaro. If you are looking for the other games on Wednesday, tonight, you will have it also in our channel. On Tuesday, you will have Europa League and then all the top 5 leagues. As always, thanks, Dani. Thanks, Alvaro. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Let's see if it's safe enough to go for Man United to win.
Come on, the Reds. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.